Good afternoon, I'm Karen Holmes Ward. Today our focus is on the MBTA, a check-in on the progress the General Manager Philip Ng has made after just 9 months on the job, and the laundry list of issues that must still be addressed. More than 750,000 commuters rely on the T to get them to work on time. But with scheduled shutdowns and slowdowns and unscheduled breakdowns, the system continues to pose challenges. Just last week, electrical issues jammed up the morning rush hour commute for passengers on the red and orange lines, along with the scheduled closure on the green line. Many riders find the state of the T discouraging.
I commute to Boston every day, and all it is it's been frustrating because they continue to tell us they're shutting down subways and rail tracks to fix them. But unfortunately, this has been a continuous problem.
The T is working to improve service, safety, equity, and sustainability. But how long will it take to accomplish the goals set for the aging system? And how much will it cost? Well, to provide some of those answers, joining us now is the MBTA's General Manager, Philip Ng. Welcome. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So you took charge of the oldest transit system in the country last April. What's the biggest challenge you see facing the T?
Well, I think right now it's twofold. The amount of work that we need to do across our whole system is just that. It's across the whole system. So many of our components need infrastructure investments after years of not having sufficient funding and work, and we're focused on doing that. The numbers that we talked about long-term, $24 billion to bring just back to a state of good repair, sounds daunting, but at the same time, we can make improvements and meaningful results. But we're rebuilding the workforce as we rebuild our infrastructure and rebuild public trust.
Pretty high price tag there. I guess it's like, you know, getting a new car. If you don't service it regularly, eventually it's going to fall apart.
Absolutely. You need to give it the appropriate attention at the right time, because if you wait too long, it becomes not just a maintenance issue, but now it becomes replacement and or something even larger, perhaps.
So let me ask you about this. An electrical issue is to blame for one of the latest service disruptions that happened just this last week. Reports of smoke this past Tuesday at the downtown crossing station led to the shutdown of more than a dozen stops along the red and orange lines, combined with a planned closure of the section of the green line. Oh my gosh. And this all happened on a day where the weather made for an already miserable commute. So you talk about rebuilding trust. How can commuters count on the T to get them to work on time? And how do you rebuild trust with customers that, you know, have to face these issues regularly?
Well, one of the things that we're very focused on, and this was even before I got here and Governor Healy has talked about, is transparency and communication. And I think that's very important for the public to know what we're faced with and why they're experiencing some of these things. The power system, which was the cause of the issue on Tuesday, 76% of our power system in the transit facility is not in a state of good repair. That doesn't mean we are not focused on addressing them and being proactive. There's different measures that we will use to inspect our power cables that proactively maybe address and fix them before they become a fire hazard or a smoke condition. What I want the public to know, and they will start to see, and they've already felt it, as we go in now and with these current diversions that we have, we are performing a tremendous amount of work that has not been done for years that is resulting in a smoother, safer, and shorter trip. And while we're fixing track as part of the primary focus here, we are addressing power issues as well. We are looking at those components, and we're fixing our stations too. Hopefully people notice they're brighter, they're cleaner, and that's part of how we maximize these diversions to minimize the impacts.
Could this outage that happened this past Tuesday have been communicated better to T riders before they even showed up at the stations? Well,
the incident on the red line, which ultimately carried over to the orange line, was an unforeseen incident that occurred, unfortunately, at 8:20 in the morning. That was at the peak of rush hour. And as you mentioned, it coincided with a planned closure of the Green Line. Normally, if that incident occurred, Green Line would have been our alternative service, in addition to supporting with buses. But the fact that the Green Line was closed for this work that's ongoing in the tracks, we had to rely on buses. One of the things that the public may have read in some of the stories is the design of our system too. The power cables that were of an issue were adjacent to the red line. So the initial thought is, let's shut down the power on the red line. It turned out that those cables were coincided in the same duct bank that had orange line and green line. So green line was already closed. We knew that wasn't it. So next step was to have to shut the power on the orange line. Ultimately, that was the cause. Those cables were at least 40 years old, if not older. The records go back.
And again,
that goes
hadn't
to
been maintained properly.
Right.
Had not been maintained properly.
And that night when we went back to do the permanent repair, not only was it just a short section of the cable, that it was at least 1,000 feet that we needed to replace. So
Wow.
it just shows that the amount of work that we need to do. The public, I want them to know that we are focused on it.
Yes.
And we will continue to work on incident response, timeliness, and communication.
Now, you mentioned Governor Healy. In her State of the Commonwealth address, Governor Maura Healy pledged to ramp up spending on the MBTA when she submits her budget this week. Let's take a listen.
We are committed to making your commutes better. We'll double our support for MBTA operations and tackle deferred maintenance so that we can build a system that is worthy of our economy.
So are you receiving the kind of support you need from the governor and the State House?
Absolutely. I'm getting chills as I listen to that, because the amount of support has been phenomenal. The ability for us to get in and start tackling these in a way that's not been done before. And I mean the support from the administration, from local electeds, and the public even, because the diversions that we're doing, while they do impact people's commutes short term, they will be providing that long-term benefit that the governor talked about, quality of life, giving people back minutes of their lives, of their daily activities, spend time with family, and reliability, because businesses count on employees being able to get to work, right?
A quality of life issue that I want to bring up that has to do with what's going on in Beacon Hill. The state's multi-family zoning requirement for the MBTA communities was designed to increase housing along MBTA lines. That would allow apartments in suburban areas that only permit single-family homes now. But some cities and towns are saying that since the T isn't reliable, they're using that as an excuse, as a reason for refusing to comply with this. So, what's your response to that, and how do you feel about being tied to this housing issue?
Well, I've always looked at public transportation as an essential part of quality of life and economic development. That's why I'm so happy to be back in public service. What I say to those different communities is there's many examples of transit-oriented development that revitalizes and makes the future for our future generations want to stay and live in the Commonwealth. What I will also say is that we will restore the service that people deserve and expect. And one of the things that I talk about, as we talk about development and potential opportunities, it's always important for me as the service provider to be an early part of the planning, early part of the discussions, because developers need to know what kind of service they can expect.
Yes.
And people that choose to live there, work there, they also need to know what kind of service to expect. And for me to be able to meet their expectations, it's good for me to be as part of that dialogue early on.
So there has to be a master plan, and I'm sure there is, about where T expansion will occur.
Expansion, but also just restoring the system. Not only where it was before, but restoring it back to better. And that might mean frequency. That might mean making sure schedules support those different businesses and the uses that people want to use, and just so that we have the capacity. But that's part of the excitement of being here and supporting the Commonwealth.
All right, we're going to talk to you for the rest of the program. You're going to stay with us. Up next, bus routes and addressing issues of equity. That's when our discussion with MBTA General Manager Philip Ng continues.